SportsCenter on the Road is presented by Geico. Visit now with my guy, Ryan Clark, one of the stars, obviously, of Monday Night Countdown, and a guy there on site, RC. One of the things I appreciate most about you and what you do both with us and on your podcast, The Pivot, is you explore growth as human beings, where none of us are finished products. And I look at the quarterback for Philly, I look at their head coach, and you think about where they've been at various times in their life. And people want to grade them as if it's a finished project, but our journey, if we're lucky, isn't ever done. And I'm interested in how you view, let's start with the head coach. And that guy that I hand up, I thought, man, I'm not sure about this dude. He's a Super Bowl champion now. Where do you begin with him?
You know what I said earlier on tonight to someone? I said, thank God Nick Sirianni didn't fire himself when everyone outside of that building was calling for his job, saying he wasn't behaving in the way that a head coach should behave. The man just kept coaching, and he's a true testament to do the job to the best of your ability until it's no longer your job. You saw his continued growth, not only as a coach when it came to what they did schematically, but when it came to who he was as a person, who he was as a leader of men. And as the season got longer, I started to hear more and more players go to bat for Nick Sirianni. More and more players say how much they loved Nick Sirianni. And when you see a night like tonight where they look like the more prepared team, they look like the hungrier team, they look like the team that was ready to execute the best, it says a lot about who Nick Sirianni is, not only as a coach, but as a man. And now he's a Super Bowl champion.
So is Jalen Hurts. And here's a guy who went through it at Alabama, didn't blink, right? Has always behaved, even as a young man, like a CEO in charge of not his brand, but who he is as a man. And I just have such admiration and appreciation for that. And you knew Spags was going to say, all right, we're not going to let Saquon beat us. We're going to see if number one can. Well, that defense did. But how about Hurts and his level of play tonight? What stood out to you?
You know, I've been saying through the last few weeks, let's not forget what we've seen from Jalen Hurts in the biggest moments of his career. And I think tonight he showed again exactly who he can be when he's called upon. From the early pass to A.J. Brown that was called back because of OPI, I felt like Jalen Hurts was locked in. And then you looked at the way that he used his legs. He extended plays, the physicality in which he played with, and the poise he displayed the entire game, especially when Spags brought pressure. I'm going to say this, and I don't know if he'll be mad at me, but I hope that he won't. Jalen and I have developed a friendship over this season. We met at Up Fronts, and we continued to talk. We continued to communicate. And I was always impressed that every time we spoke, every time that we text, all he talked about was winning. All he talked about was focusing on the main thing and how he needs to continue to get better to allow his team to achieve the ultimate goal. And to him, I say, brother, you did that. You were steadfast in your belief in yourself, steadfast in your belief in God, steadfast in your belief in this team, and now you get to reap the reward as a Super Bowl champion.
He was great. That defense was outrageous, Ryan. And I understand that this Kansas City team is not a juggernaut offensively, but they're not 14 yards on 16 plays either. And that Philly defense, we talked about them a lot on Countdown, but I'm asking myself now, I don't think we gave them enough love. We got all next year to figure all that out. My gosh, what a performance. Where do you start?
I mean, but Scott, let's be real. We watched the Washington Commanders have early success against this team. We thought at one point Matthew Stafford was going to drive the football and score late in that game to push it into extra minutes in overtime. And so let's not just act like they were this every single game. What we saw tonight, to me, was a first-half performance that goes down as one of the best first-half performances we've ever seen in the Super Bowl. And I'm talking about teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm talking about teams like the Baltimore Ravens. It was that dominant. And no matter what we say about the Kansas City Chiefs not being explosive, not being your normal Kansas City Chiefs, this is a team that won 15 regular season games and didn't try to win the last one. This is a team that scored 32 points to beat the Buffalo Bills and Sean McDermott's defense. And what we saw tonight was the Philadelphia Eagles defense taking their belt off and putting it on the tail of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I'm going to say this. I thought the roster was better, Scott. I thought player for player defensively, they were better than the Kansas City Chiefs were on the offense. But I never thought that that would trickle down to number 15. For Patrick Mahomes to seem rattled in the way that he was, for Cooper DeJean and Zach Bond to take advantage of the way that he tried to get the football out of his hands, and for that rush to absolutely dominate in the way that they did, there wasn't enough film you could watch before this game that would make you predict that. It was an epic performance by this defense and Vic Fangio.
Well said, perfectly said. That'll be the last word. RC, I appreciate you. Stay well until we cross paths. I hope it's soon, all right?
I appreciate you too, my boy. Can't wait to see you again.